Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. This is Grilling at the Green. I'm Jeff Tracy, your host. How's your golf game? How's your head game? That's a good question for today. Well, our friend Gary Christian from Golf Channel and former tour player is back with us. He's got a new book coming out, and we'll talk about when it comes out and all that. But it's a very interesting book. It's called Beat the Course, Not Yourself: One Golfer's Path to a Winning Mental Game. Uh, Gary's the co-author with Dr. Kurt, and I'm going to say this right, Ickes?
Yeah, well
Ickes?
done.
Okay,
Yeah.
there you go. Very interesting book, very easy read. And I reached out to Gary about this, and he said, sure. And so here he is. Welcome back, buddy.
No, it's great to be back. Yeah, and I'm disappointed I didn't get to see you when I covered the Portland event on the LPGA at in the middle of last year. So
Yeah.
hopefully next year I'll get a chance.
Well, it's back. They got a sponsor.
That's
They
what I
got,
heard.
yeah, they got a sponsor, Standard Insurance. And so it's a 3-year deal there. So we'll
Good.
see your smiling face for a few more years, at least up here.
I hope so. It'll be a nice place to come back to, and it's such a great tournament that, with all that history, that it's. I'm glad they got a sponsor.
Yeah, it's really good, really good. So, about your book, Beat the Course, Not Yourself. As you and I were talking off here, Gary, there's a ton of golf instruction books about your swing, how to not hit a slice, how to chip, how to putt, how to this, how to that. And there's also a ton of psych books, if you will, on your golf game. But yours is different. And I've read a ton of those books. When you do a show like this, people want you to read their book and have them on the show, and they're all great. They've all put a lot of time and effort into it. But what I told you before we came on the air was it's a little different because it's like it's in a story form, and it's like it's got a worksheet in it for you at the end of each chapter, which I found fascinating because it really kind of guides the reader to say, what did you what did you discern out of this, and questions about their own mental and physical game. What prompted you to do it that way?
Yeah, I just think I always felt the most useful books that I read when I was trying to become as good as I possibly could, and the mental side of the game is what took me as a not a particularly gifted physically skilled player
Right.
and not a very gifted physical statured player to get the absolute most out of my game, and there were 1,000 players better than me that never reached their potential, and I reached and maybe even surpassed my potential purely from adhering and spending so much time on the mental side of the game. So I know the importance of it, and when I was really delving into that, when I was learning it and trying to implement it into my game, the most successful books I had were ones where I almost took a highlighter and wrote in the book and wrote notes and try to apply what I learned from reading the chapter, and so it kind of felt like it was a really good way to kind of blend, an easy reading story that puts you in almost inside the mind of a competitive player that just makes mistakes all day long and keeps making the same mistakes and doesn't know why and doesn't know how to cure them and thinks it's all swing related. And we find out that we could go in a different route, i.e. the mental side of the game, and take care of a lot of the problems and become a successful tournament player. But with that easy reading story, there's lessons to be learned in every chapter, and so it's nice where it's almost you can personalize it to you. There's no real right or wrong answer, because you read a chapter, then we kind of threw it over to you to see what you got out of
Mhm.
it, and one person will get something out of it, some other person will get something very different out of it. But it's something that you want to just keep kind of going back to and rereading, and every time you read it, I think you'll find something different, and you'll find something different that you do that you think, you know what, this might be worth really investigating a little bit deeper.
I think one of the things that made it different from a lot of the other uh, mental game books, if you will, is the fact that no knock on the professionals that write them. I mean, they went to They went to shrink school. They did, they had to do all that stuff. But sometimes you get lost in those books because they're espousing things that perhaps through their practice that they've learned or through school, but it's not presented in a way that the average person who doesn't want to delve into the deep end of the pool, or dive into the deep end of the pool, I should say, Gary, on the mental game, speak in simple sentences, and
Yeah.
so that they can, and I'm not being, well, I am being sarcastic, but I'm just saying that most people don't have the time to sit and get way out in the realm of Freudian stuff or whatever to figure out why they get the jitters or the yips when they're putting or whatever it is. But that's one of the things I found really attractive about this.
Yeah, and that's exactly the point we were trying to make. This is almost like an entry level into golf psychology, and I was the same. What you just said, it pertained exactly to me. So I was really deep into psychology, golf psychology, to get my competitive advantage, and I would digest every single golf psychology book that ever came out. And I was always, I was excited to read a new one, but a lot of the time there may be 15 chapters, and maybe only one chapter really pertained to me and spoke to me, and so the other 14, I either knew already, or it just didn't really mean too much to me. But
Right.
I got something out of it, but I knew what I was looking for. And as you said, if you don't know what you're looking for and you just say, well, I just got to read psychology books, you can kind of get lost. And this is, it's very clear, it's very concise, it is, it's kind of like kind of takes you on a journey. It takes you on a journey through a round of competitive golf, and the highs and the lows, and then trying to figure out what a new plan could be, and then spending some time with someone who knows what they're doing, and then putting it into practice, and then playing ultimately a really impressive tournament. And it's seeing the development of this Jack character, who's a young college wannabe who wants to play collegiate golf, and he just keeps sabotaging himself because he doesn't have any control over himself. And all the tenets of golf psychology is control what you can control. And I think why this book will really resonate is, especially for a parent, when you watch your kid who is a really good golfer, and you watch them play in a tournament, and you say, how in the world did you make a bogey from there, from the middle of the fairway with a wedge in your hand? And the kid just doesn't know. He says, well, just, my swing's bad, or, it was just bad luck or whatever. And there's more to it than that. There was a series of decisions, or a series of lack of focus that led to, a talented player turn an easy shot into a hard shot, and turn a potential birdie into a bogey or worse. And we see it every single round of golf, with the majority of junior players and the majority of club players in their local dogfight or club championship. And so it's something that, whoever plays any kind of form of competitive golf, whether it's super serious or just the regular dogfight, they're going to get something out of this, and they can use that to get better. Because the way I look at things, and the way golf is for club golfers in particular, you're really busy people. You don't have time to devote hour upon hour upon hour hitting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of balls. And here's the main thing: hit hundreds of balls correctly to really fundamentally change the swing so much. But you can work on how you go about focus, and how you go about making good decisions, and being fully committed to the shot you can hit. And so I think it's going to be a really interesting read.
I think so too. We want to thank the Oregon Crab Commission and also Painted Hills Natural Beef for sponsoring this segment. And Gary and I will be back right after this. Don't go away. Welcome back to Grilling It's Green. I'm JT. Today we're with Gary Christian. And get this up front here. We want to thank the folks at Weston Kia for this part of the show. You say it in your title, beat the course, not yourself. I'm I'm right there raising my hand with everybody because you said it at the back of the last segment. We don't have time to go out there. We'd love to, but we don't have time to go out and pound balls, 4 hours a day and work on something like that. Most of us are weekend warriors. You can hit the shots. You've played enough, you can hit the shots. Maybe you had enough lessons or worked on things like that, but you don't have time to practice. So you're making that shot 1 out of 4 times, maybe. If you walk up and you just clear your mind and you're relaxed and you hit it, it'll do something probably pretty good for the most part. But we get there and we get, did I take the garbage out this morning? Did I what did my coach say the last time the ball was above my feet? I should do this. Or you get these clutter
Yeah.
uh little pockets in your brain, and that's when the game isn't exactly fun for people, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you think about it, when you play your best, whether you're a scratch player or a 20 handicapper, when you're playing your best, everything just happens, doesn't it? You look at the target and you swing, and the ball goes basically where you want it to go. And when you get under the pressure of competition, there's all those distractions. You want to play well, you have to play well. Maybe if you're a competitive junior, you're trying to get a golf scholarship. If you're a 20 handicapper and you're trying to get your quota, you've got a chance to win a few dollars. And so, that quiet, that focus just wavers, and the game's hard enough as it is without all these competing thoughts, trying to get into your brain. So, every golf psychology book will talk about building a routine to help you kind of act as a little bit of a force field to kind of stop a lot of those distracting thoughts disrupting how you go about your shot. And so we talk about that. We talk about positive self-talk. You're in charge of what you say to yourself. And in the book, it's just a little anecdote that I remember hearing a long time ago. The number of times you tell yourself how bad you are and how awful you are and how much you suck and I shouldn't be out here and what's the point. And then you flip it around and say, if you had a guy caddying for you who said that to you, you'd probably tell him to drop the bag and fire him on the spot. So
Right.
why would you say it to yourself? So there's all these things that we're in control of that we're just not aware that we're sabotaging ourselves all the time. So this book helps to give you awareness of all these things that are making the game more difficult and not easier. And so, the more that we can, number one, find out what these things are and focus on, trying to be as aware as possible and then catch them before something disrupts you and pat yourself on the back. And so, that's all part of learning a skill, just like when you start learning how to chip properly. And, you go from duffing every shot to all of a sudden making good contact. You pat yourself on the back and saying there's progress. Well, progress in the mental side of the game is just as important, maybe if not more important.
One thing I would hope that when the book comes out, that parents would read this book.
Mm.
I came from a different sports world into this, but same thing applies. We would have the helicopter parents and parents that spent incredible amount of money to get their kid where it is today. But the kid usually, if you looked at them, and I was their coach a lot of times, they had a knot in their stomach as big as a cantaloupe, and you'd try to talk them off the ledge, as we would say, like that. But I would think that this book would be good for parents too, for junior golfers or high school golfers or whatever, because we've seen that so many times. I don't play at that level, but I've covered that level, and I can tell you some of the LPGA tour players that came through Portland over the years, that they had mom and dad and their coach and entourage, and I can think of one very famous golfer in particular. And she always looked about half miserable until she got her folks to stay home, and she was just going to the tournaments with her and her caddy. It was a world of difference in her.
Yeah. Yeah, oh, absolutely. And like I said in the first segment, I think it's a really useful thing for parents to read, to understand what their kids are going through and why they see what they think are elementary mistakes And they're saying, well, I'm spending all this money on lessons. Why can't you hit a green with a wedge? Well, there's more to it than that. And so hopefully if they read this, they will understand what their kids are going through, and then they can kind of help them, push them a little bit more to taking care of the mental side of the game a lot more than they have to this point. And that's going to make them better golfers. It's going to make their relationship stronger. And it's going to take a little pressure off them because their performance is going to be better. We watch these incredible players, coming straight out of college and winning on the PGA Tour. We've seen Nick Dunlap win as a college sophomore. The reason they are so much better than their contemporaries 20, 30 years ago is because, from 14, 15, 16, they've basically got a PGA Tour team around them. They got swing coaches, they got psychologists, they got nutritionalists, they got people who help them work out, they got people who manage their travel, all of those kinds of things. So if the best college players and the best high school players are doing this and taking care of everything they can control, it seems like if you're not paying attention to the mental side of the game at an early stage, then you're certainly playing at a competitive disadvantage. So as I said, this is kind of designed for that age group, but it also applies to anyone who just wants to get better.
Absolutely. I mean, I actually, in reading the book, I actually thought of a couple things about myself that I do consistently. No need to discuss what those are because I'm not that abusive to myself. But the point is, it really does make you think. And I'm really glad we're talking about Gary's new book coming out, Beat the Course, Not Yourself: One Golfer's Path to Winning a Winning Mental Game. And what was it, Bobby Jones? Those 5 inches between your ears, that deal, So Gary and I'll be back in a minute on Grilling at the Green. Stay with us. Welcome back to Grilling at the Green. I'm JT. Today we're talking with Gary Christian. This is your second appearance. So Gary, now you're officially friend of the show. How's that?
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Do I get a blazer?
You get I'll send you a patch, a little sticky.
Okay, I like that.
Sticky.
Okay.
When you come to Portland, you can wear it across from the Golf Channel one on your shirt. How's that? Gary's got a new book out, Beat the Course, Not Yourself: One Golfer's Path to a Winning Mental Game, with Gary and Dr. Kurt Ickes. The characters. I like the characters. I like Jack. I really like Matt. I like the old coach. I know a bunch of guys like Nick. I think we all do. Not to give away all the character profiles, but Jack's the hero, Nick's the anti-hero, and Matt's the sidekick, the I don't know what you want to call it. The Walter Brennan in Westerns used to be for John Wayne. He was the good guy, always kind of did that. And it's funny in thinking about this after I read it, trying to reflect back on some different recent rounds and stuff. And I thought, talking to my friends when we're playing and just talking about stuff completely irrelevant to golf, whether it's business or a trip we took or a restaurant or whatever. I found that most of the time when you do that and then you get up and take your next shot and, go through your routine and set up like that, you do better. I'd never really thought of it about that way, but a little reflection, kind of said, yeah, when you do that. But when you're ticked off at the last shot and you walk 10 yards to the next shot because you muffed it, and you're still all buzzed up about that and thinking, God, Jeff, don't be an idiot this time. Don't do that again, whatever. You're in for a long day.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as I said, you are in control of yourself. We are relatively advanced human beings who play golf. So we should understand that the more we sabotage ourselves, the harder it's going to be. So it basically works as a vicious cycle, doesn't it? So, you hit a bad shot and then you obsess about it all the way to the next shot. And that means you're not in a very good frame of mind to hit the next shot. You go through your routine, but it's not very focused because you're still thinking about the previous one. Then you hit another bad shot, and then the cycle just keeps getting worse and worse, and you just spiral out of control. And so, if we can kind of stop and be aware of those poisonous thoughts and those poisonous reactions to a bad shot, and then try and kind of regather ourselves and do the most efficient pre-shot routine we can, it certainly doesn't guarantee a great shot, but it gives you a much better chance. And then at the end of it, you can say, hey, you know what? I did everything I could do. Golf's just a hard game, and sometimes you just hit bad shots, but at least you don't have regrets. It's that thing when you get back at the end of the round and let's say you shot 90 and you say, God, if only I'd have just kept my head in the game and not given up here and not just completely lost the plot there, I could have shot 82. It was just so many bad mistakes that I made that I
Yeah.
wish I could have had a do-over. And that's what we're trying to get to with this book, where, the more you hang in there, we're all going to have that nice little patch of 2 or 3 holes where, if we've kind of just given up and spiraled, it doesn't matter how good that 45 minutes is. It's not gonna really make a big difference at the end of the day. But if we kept our head in the game and we've, tried our best and we've given ourselves the best opportunity, that 45 minutes might all of a sudden completely transform something and turn what was looking to be a bad day at the office to be actually a pretty good one.
Your character, Jack, is that a
Mm,
compilation of people you know or you've taught? Because I know you
yes.
teach that type of thing. I'm kind of assuming some of the character traits in these are from some of your students.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's the nice thing. I've taught a number of, college players and high schoolers trying to get to college. Um, and that's why I wanted to write the book, because it's a story that all of those guys, as soon as they read it, they'll say, "Man, that's me. That's me. Oh, that character's like this guy that I knew. Oh, that coach is just like the old guy that used to hang out at our golf club." And Matt is, it's just like my best friend who was always so supportive of me, believed in me more than I did. And so, I got a lot of, in the acknowledgement pages, I just, mentioned a few of them of, the honesty that they gave me when we sat down and just talked, be honest with me. What is it like when things are going completely out of control? And they really kind of had to dig deep, because a lot of them kind of suppressed it and really didn't want to talk about it. They really enjoyed talking about when they played well, what that felt like. That was easy.
Oh yeah.
But it was really illuminating for me, and it took me back to when I was playing as a junior and playing as a college player. I mean, I made a lot of the same mistakes, and my big regret was I didn't throw myself into the mental side of the game until I was 28 or 30. And by that time, if I'd have done it 10 years earlier, I would have been on the tour not at 40 but at 30.
How much do you think that that was actually my next question. If this book would have been around,
Mm.
25 years ago, 30 years ago, because you're barely 30. So but you didn't have, they weren't, this type of information, even the thought-provoking information, really wasn't available.
Yeah, not widespread, and it was kind of a little bit of, this voodoo or what is this? I'm not
Right.
really sure about this. And then Bob Rotella kind of, was the first sort of real, out front golf psychologist that players were proud to work with, and wrote books. And that was kind of when it kind of all kicked off in the '90s, I would say. But but again, you've got to have, if it's something that people are kind of a little reluctant to delve into, the
Right.
last thing you want to do is make it an intimidating type of book where they read half a chapter in and they say, "Nah, I don't know, this isn't for me." So that's why it was in a story form. I read a really good book when I was, one of the many books I read. 7 Days in Utopia was one of my favorite books, and the reason it was so good was because it was a story. And after half a chapter, I was hooked, and I wanted to find out what was going to happen to the characters. And I think this is exactly the same, where I think that first half a chapter, you're kind of get inside feeling what Jack's feeling, and you kind of want him to succeed. And man, I can't wait to see how he plays. And then, man, I really feel sorry for him, and I hope he gets to the bottom of this. And then you feel kind of elated when he starts to figure it all out, and then culminates in playing well. So, this is kind of a secret of a good story, isn't it? You want
Yeah.
to have empathy with the main character, and you're pulling for him.
Do you ever have any nicks in your career? And
Yes,
I'm not talking
plenty.
about Nick Price or Nick Faldo, but
Yeah, plenty of them. Yeah, I mean, there
okay,
was always that guy that always, I came from humble means, and I didn't have very good equipment. I didn't wear very good clothes. There was always that guy that was just dressed perfectly, had a car before anyone else had a car, had the great set of golf clubs, just looked the part, dressed the part, swung great, always won tournaments, and he was arrogant with it. And it's the same at club championship, with a bunch of 50-year-olds. There's always that one guy who just sort of stands out and people really, really want to beat because he's just got that air about him.
yeah,
And so, that's, as I said, that's why I think it resonates so well, because those characters you could turn from 15-year-old Jack into 50-year-old Chip playing in the second flight of the club championship, and really wanting to beat Johnny, who's won it for the last 4 years in a row. And that's where the kind of the fun comes, where it is relatable to everyone.
kind of the Caddyshack Bushwood deal with Judge Smales and
Exactly.
the doctor,
Yeah,
type thing.
exactly.
Oh gosh. So what prompted you? Um, what prompted you to just say the light bulb went on? I'm going to write a book, Gary.
It's very strange. My life, my career has just been, there's been little moments of just the right thing happens at the right time. And I'm not broadcasting enough to make a comfortable living at it. And so I knew, man, I got to throw myself into something a little bit different here. And I was just looking around. I was trying to figure out what it is I want to do in addition to broadcasting. And just out of the blue, a guy who I used to stay with when I played in the Corn Ferry Tour event in Columbus called me out of the blue and said, "Hey, I got my best friend. He's a psychologist who's written a bunch of baseball psychology books for kids, and he really wants to do a golf one. Any way you can help there?" And I said, "I know just the man." And so it was just something immediately. It was just one of those lucky chance meetings or chance phone calls. And all of a sudden, I said, "Well, I've got time in my hands, and I've got plenty to say, and I've got plenty of experience, and a lot of it's learning from the mistakes that I made. I think I can do this." And I read his book, and it was kind of designed for the sort of 12, 13-year-olds at baseball, and it was the same kind of
Right.
thing. It was such an easy read. I'm not a baseball fan. I've never played it, but even as a non-baseball player, I read a couple of his books, and it was great. It was entertaining, but I learned, I could see where he was going with it and how it would help if I had a kid who was playing baseball. So it was a really good combination. So he has a very good way of writing. Obviously, highly qualified in the realms of sports psychology, but didn't really
Sure.
know golf. So we kind of both kind of piggybacked off each other with my practical knowledge of golf and my practical knowledge of golf psychology and my experience of being around the game for 30 years, and then his experience in writing books and his experience of sports psychology.
Well, there you go. We're going to take another break. Gary Christian and I are going to be back. We're going to wrap up the show. Gary's got a new book coming out. I want to make sure I get the title right. It's nothing worse for a host than to get the title wrong. Beat the Course, Not Yourself, One Golfer's Path to a Winning Mental Game. That's what Gary wrote part of it, and Dr. Kurt Ickes wrote the other part of it. And we're going to write some commercials here, and then we'll be right back. I promise. Welcome back to Grilling at the Green. I'm JT. We want to thank we got a whole litany of sponsors for this show. If you've never noticed, we've got Squares Golf Shoes, of course, Painted Hills Beef, the Oregon Crab Commission, Hammerstall Knives, Birdie Ball, Heritage Cookware, all those great people that supported this and the TV show. We thank them a lot. You can go to our website and find links to them wherever you want. And of course, we're on Golf Newsnet on the iHeart channel there, 24/7 golf shows. So that's kind of fun. So from where we started this thing a few years ago, it's grown a bit. But we're talking with Gary Christian today, former Corn Ferry and PGA Tour player. Now does some broadcasting for Golf Channel, among other places, and now he's an author. How about that? I like that.
I like that. Many strings to the bow. So that's
Yeah.
it's nice to it's nice to push yourself. I've always enjoyed kind of just pivoting off and trying different things, and I really hope this book can sell the numbers that I think it can sell, because I'd love to do some more. But I was really, I was really proud and excited to get a couple of really good forwards. One was from Nick Kleinert, the head coach of the Auburn men's golf team that won the national championship, and he was national coach of the year. And he wrote some very kind words, and basically said that these are the kind of the characteristics he's looking for. So when he's recruiting, he looks at the swing and he looks at video and he looks at swing speeds and he looks at all those attributes, but he wants that something that's going to separate those thousand players who hit it really well. They've got to have something extra. They've got to have that maturity. They've got to have that ability to control themselves and have at least the start of a great strong mental side of the game and mental toughness. And we're kind of talking about he may the last thing he wants to do is recruit a person and then have to teach them that for 2 or 3 years. The best recruit he can get is someone with a physical skill set and already the mental skill set built in. And then Susie Whaley, the past president of the PGA of America, also wrote a foreword, and she really tied it to the ADM, the American Development Model, that the PGA of America is helping to really develop junior golfers, kind of at age levels. Going from kind of just motor coordination to developing skills, and then you get into the competitive stage of development in the mid-teens, and that's where you introduce the golf psychology. So she was very nice to write that this is that perfect sort of pathway to help with that side as well.
Cool. I want to start with actually a couple of questions or overviews from your book, and then we'll pick it up in after hours. But when you're playing and you're teaching and you've seen all this stuff, one of the things you talk about in the book, of course, and we all do, is a pre-shot routine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And 25 years ago, people didn't think anything about a pre-shot routine. That was something that Jack did if you happen to notice on television, but you didn't really do it. You ask about commit fully, visualize vividly, and feel intentionally. Are those equally as important to you, or are they different levels for different golfers?
Yeah, I think every golfer will be able to do them at a higher or a lower level. Some people are just naturally more imaginative and can visualize things so much stronger. Others really struggle. Some people are very aware of what it is they're trying to do with their practice swing. Others, they've got to learn that skill. But it's you're trying to paint the clearest picture and give yourself the most vivid feel that you possibly can to replicate when you go hit the ball. And so all of them are equally important, but there's, to me, the commitment just stands out just a little bit higher, because you if you're standing over a ball and you're not really sure you're either hitting the right shot or you got the right club or you should be hitting the shot, if you've got doubt in your mind, there's every chance that you're not going to make a very good swing. And so that's why I encourage people, when you watch the PGA Tour, watch PGA Tour live, because instead of just cutting from shot to shot where they basically miss the pre-shot routine, a lot of the time, especially in the marquee group where you've got one group, you can see the process that the player and the caddy go through. So you think about, these incredibly talented athletes, the best in the world at what they do, and you listen to the interplay between the caddy and the player. They're not taking dead aim at every flag. Even though they could, they know that the smart shot is just a little bit left of the flag, or just a little bit right of the flag. Or, the aggressive shot that takes out the bunker off the tee with the driver is actually a smarter shot than trying to lay up short of the bunker. And, to listen to that, where that information helps them commit as fully as they possibly can. And so that, in a nutshell, is what this book is teaching you. Maybe a different level. But if the best players in the world know that the best chance they got at hitting a good shot is to be fully committed, and then going through that process after that, then, I like to learn from the best.
Oh, absolutely. We're running out of time here, Gary, for the regular show, but when's the book available?
Well, it's just getting formatted right now. So it's very cool because we write the book and then we format it, put it in a format, and then we send it to Amazon. And then immediately Amazon, put it on the website and you can search it. And they'll, I guess they'll have search parameters and you order it and they print it and they send it to you. So it's really
Okay.
simple. So it's very different from maybe the old days where you'd have to spend a lot of money up front and print a
Right.
load of books and have them stuck in a warehouse that may or may not sell. So, nothing's actually printed until you order it. So it's great. It's great from a self-publishing route. And we're hoping it should be ready on the website in the middle of next week. That's the goal.
Good for you, Gary Christian, new author. Welcome to the world of authors. His new book, Beat the Course, Not Yourself, One Golfer's Path to a Winning Mental Game. Gary wrote that with Dr. Kurt Ickes. Gary, thank you. And stick around for after hours. But go to Amazon next week, folks, and look up Gary's book. It's worth it. I read it. It's a lot of fun. We're going to get out of here. In fact, I'm going to get out of town for a few days. Until then, everybody have great time in December and all that. And we'll all see you in a couple of weeks. Take care. Welcome to After Hours here on Grilling at the Green. I'm Jeff Tracy, as you probably know by this point, and today we're with Gary Christian. Gary's got a new book out on Amazon, Beat the Course, Not Yourself, One Golfer's Path to a Winning Mental Game. By the way, this show will actually air after Thanksgiving, so your book should be available then.
Perfect. Even better.
Yeah, like that. So, give you an overview if you're only catching this part of the show. This is kind of a journey of a young man and his pal and his family to some extent, and his nemesis in the golf tournaments. The kid needs to get to school, get a scholarship, and that's all I'm going to tell you because it's a lot of fun things. But it's also a workbook for you, the golfer. So, and we're going to give you a little highlight of some workbook questions here, if Gary's up to it. I'm sure he is because he wrote them.
Yeah.
But let me get my notes here squared away. And one of the questions is how often does your mind dwell on the last shot instead of focusing on the current one? Well, as a weekend warrior, I can tell you that if I hit a good shot, a really good shot on the last one, I'm all jazzed up, right? I'm
Mhm.
thinking that. And then I get to my next shot and I think you don't do it intentionally, but you kind of skip over part of the process, just thinking that you can go ahead and blast it out of the rough or whatever you're doing, doesn't matter. And then a lot of times that next shot is not quite as spectacular as the one that got you there. So,
Exactly.
you know, when you're coaching and you're teaching, Gary, what do you tell people about that?
Well, that's the thing. Every shot has equal importance, and you should devote equal amount of focus to each shot. And whether it's a double bogey putt or an eagle putt, or your 5 under par stand on the last tee, or your 10 over par, we want to try and treat every shot the same. And we almost called the book "Win the Next Shot," which actually would follow on from Kurt's books on baseball.
All right.
So it's the similar kind of mindset in that the most important shot is the next shot. So we want to give ourselves the full attention and the full focus to give ourselves the best chance of success. But yeah, the more we dwell on the previous shot, the more time that takes away and the more focus that takes away from what it is we're doing right now, which is the most important shot, is always the next one.
And you talk a lot in the book about pre-shot routines. We talked about it in the regular show. When I've actually developed one because a few years ago I didn't think anything about it. I just try to go and kind of line up and do it. Now I actually have a little short routine that I do. I'm not sure it makes me a better golfer, but it looks great. And so in doing that, but isn't that just part of the stepping stone to getting a good mindset and controlling what you can control? Is
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
doing that routine? And routine is a word that means you do it all the time.
Yeah,
So
yes. So you want to form a habit. So, to go back to that example of, we want to make sure that the habit has been made that we're going to try just as hard and devote just as much attention, whether it's an eagle putt or a bogey putt or a triple bogey putt, because all we can do is give ourselves the best chance to do it. Now, obviously, it's very hard when you hacked it around a hole and you got a 10-footer for an 8, but you never know when that 10-footer might become important, where you hold that and all of a sudden the confidence floods back and you can turn the round around. So it's a skill that needs to be learned, but it's just something that is going to help your game in addition to everything else. So, just the same way as if you had worn out grips, if you replace those grips, you would probably hit the ball a little bit better because you had better control of the club. Just the same way as if you can focus better before every shot, you're going to hit more good shots.
You in the book, Jack talks about tension, and the old coach talks about tension, and you can feel it. I think every golfer can feel that tension, no matter at what level you're at.
Absolutely.
You get there and your shoulders are tight or your neck's tight, or and you're not holding the baby bird, you're holding a machete, in a mescal field. You know what I mean? I mean, you're doing that. So, and it's easier said than done, Gary, to relax. And you don't want to relax like you're plopping on the couch watching the football game on Sunday with a beer in your hand, but you want to relax to the point where you can hit the shot, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got to practice knowing what feeling tension-free feels like. So, when there's no pressure and you're just swinging on the range, you can have a nice, easy, free-flowing swing, tension-free. There's not much strain in the muscles. You can do what you're capable of doing. But as soon as adrenaline kicks in, and as soon as fear kicks in, and as soon as anxiety kicks in, I could have gone into the depths of golf psychology, talking about the fight or flight syndrome, where all the blood goes to your vital organs and you lose feeling in your hands, and so you grip it tighter just to get the same feeling. I didn't want to do that in the book because that would be, I think, a little bit too much for the form of the book. But that's what happens. We get anxious, and our evolutionary tendencies kick in, and so we want to feel the same as we normally would, but we don't have the feel in our hands. So we have to grip it tighter, which then goes all the way up the arms into the shoulders. And then you try and release a club head consistently when you're gripping it, with a death grip. So, I take my players on the range and say, grip this club, let's just say if 1 was as light as you possibly could and 10 was as tight as you could, let's grip this as a 2 and see if you can hit a big hook. And, most of the time they can do it if they're a decent player. And then I say, grip this as tight as you possibly can and try and hit the hook. It's very, very hard to do.
Yeah.
Because you can't release the club head. So under pressure, that's why you see a lot of players hit the massive blocks and the low pulls.
Happens a lot. I can testify to that, actually. You also talk about alignment. And I think people get, again, from personal experience, you get a little tight or something, and you don't really notice it, but your alignment is off. You think perhaps you're lined up, but did you do the routine to actually get your target, whether it's the flag or right of the bunker? Doesn't matter what the target is, but you got a target in mind. And do you, once you think you've got it, it's just there, and then all of a sudden you hit your shot, and maybe you had a really nice swing, but it's way offline because you're not even close to the target. And it's not because you hit a slice or a big hook, or unless you scuffed it or something, but you know what I mean? It's just it's like that. And I think that's one of the things too, that it's maybe more important on the mental checklist than people give it credit for.
Oh, absolutely. You can do everything right, line up wrong, hit a great shot where your alignment sent you and hit it in the woods. And now all of a sudden you think you're swinging it awful. And it's a sad, actually, it's quite a sad thing, because it's kind of like an old school, kind of almost like a given, when you were starting, who the good players you play with would, line up that intermediate target and set their club to it, and then set the feet parallel to it. And most of the time they were lined up really well. And you see golfers of an older generation have the ability to line up well, way more than their younger counterparts. And I
Right.
put that all down to the alignment rod. The alignment rod's a great thing, but if you just have that as sort of like training wheels and you don't really know why it is you're lining up and how to line up, you set a pattern, I think, where you think about when you watch people on the range. They have the alignment rod down that's lined up correctly, and they have a pile of balls to the right, and then they scoop a ball over, they hit it, they don't move their feet, and then they move the club again, set up another ball, hit that, don't move their feet, scrape another ball over and hit that. Well, what they've done, they've just made a pattern of you set the feet first and then you set the club after that, which is completely opposite to what we've done for 150 years.
Right.
And so now when they get on the golf course, most of the time you'll see bad alignment comes from setting the feet first at the target and then setting the club down 2-3 feet to the right of your feet, which now is 30 yards right of the target. And you swing the way you've been swinging aligned correctly, and you send it into the right woods. Or if you've got good hand-eye coordination, you get to the top of the backswing and say, hang on, I'm going to hit this in the right woods. And then you throw the hands in it and pull it way left because you don't want to hit it in the right woods. But it's all from laziness of being so reliant on the alignment rod that you don't learn how to do it without that alignment rod, and you just trust that, oh well, I do it all the time on the range, so it must translate to the golf course. It doesn't always do that.
I must tell you that in playing, and of course I'm over 40 now, I'll
Barely,
confess. Yeah,
barely.
barely, just right across the line. But I do see a lot of these young guys that can just clobber the ball. I mean, whatever I hit, they got it 70 yards further. Doesn't matter, like that's fine. I don't care. But I do see what you're talking about there, because they come up and they're kind of like they set their feet and
Mm,
it's almost sometimes like they're in a sand trap, the way they're wiggling
yeah.
their feet like that. And then they've teed up the ball, or the ball's on the ground, and then they go ahead and hit it, and they strike it well. There is no doubt they strike it well. But I'll be damned if that thing doesn't head for Detroit when you really wanted it to go to St. Louis. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's the thing with such high swing speeds that we see now. Boy, if you can't line up consistently, and you've got with these great mechanics, you're just fighting on every single shot because you're swinging it, aligned one way on the range, and then you set up a different way on the golf course with the same swing. The ball's not going to go where it was going on the range because now you're lined up different. And I see it all the time. And I ask players, do you ever practice without alignment rod? Oh, no, no, no. My coach says I got to use the alignment rod every time. I said, but you don't use it on the golf course. Do you ever think about trying to practice without that so you're used to being without it when you're on the golf course? And they kind of look at me a lot of the time like I got two heads. But sometimes there's wisdom in experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Last question. If there's one piece of advice that you hope people can discern from the book and apply it practically, what would that be?
I would say, yeah, I think I've kind of made it a reoccurring theme. If you can control what it is you can control, i.e., the mindset that's focused on the shot, the mindset and the focus of what it is I'm trying to do on this shot after being fully committed, the mindset of being in control of how I line up and how I, get my focus on the target,
Right.
and then just let it go and trust. And at the end of it, you don't have regrets. You said, I did everything I could do. And this is a really, really, really hard game. And the best players in the world hit it all over the map, and they're unbelievable. And they practice 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. And they've got all the technology and all the coaching that they want. And they still hit shots all over the place. But if we can just do everything we can do and have no regrets at the end of the shot, I think you can lay your head on the pillow at night and say, you know what? I did everything I can do. Game's hard. But you know what? I hit a lot of good shots, and I'm going to take that and can't wait to play again next week.
Well, I'll tell you, if Gary works in television. I've covered tournaments and stuff. And if you've never seen a tournament in real life, you've only seen them on television. You don't see 20% of the errant shots that the players make. I mean, if it's somebody like Tiger or Phil or somebody at that level and they're in the woods, they always want to show you that shot just to see if they can get the hell out of there,
Yeah.
like that. But, and it's not that they're everybody spraying balls all over the place, but, this is supposed to be the elite of the elite. And that's why I never did appreciate it till a few years ago when they say, well, they hit only 9 out of 14 fairways today or whatever the number was, like that. And then it kind of dawned on me. It's like, yeah, and they're not always in the first cut either. You know what I mean? So it's good. Gary Christian's new book, Beat the Course, Not Yourself, One Golfer's Path to Winning a Winning Mental Game. Gary, thank you. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you again. And the book will be on Amazon. Should be, by the time this show airs, it should be available. Am I
Yeah,
correct?
great. Well, it's going to be right around there. So yeah, go get a gift for Christmas or an early Christmas present. As I said, for young players, for club players, and for parents of young players, I think it's a really really good resource to read, enjoy, and kind of find out a little bit more about what's going on in a player's head.
There you go. There you go. Gary, thank you. We'll be back next week with another edition of Girling at the Green. Until then, check us out online at Golf Newsnet and Golf Newsnet TV. You can see some of the episodes are up there already. Until then, go out, have fun, get Gary's book, and play some golf. Have a good time, but most of all, be kind. Take care, everybody.